In 1932, the Australian military declared war on an enemy that could not be reasoned with, could not be intimidated, and absolutely refused to surrender. This enemy did not carry weapons. It did not wear uniforms, but it numbered in the tens of thousands, and it was winning. The enemy, emus, large, flightless birds. This is the story of the Great Emu War, one of the most bizarre military operations in human history, and a humbling reminder that nature does not always bend to human will. Welcome back to Oddplained, where we explore the strange, the forgotten, and the absolutely true. If you are new here, subscribe now, because today we are diving into a conflict so absurd that it sounds like fiction, but every word of it is documented history. Let us set the scene. It is 1932, and Australia is in the grip of the Great Depression. Farmers in Western Australia are struggling to survive, and their problems have just gotten significantly worse. After World War I, the Australian government had promised land to returning soldiers, encouraging them to settle in the wheat belt of Western Australia and become farmers. Thousands took up the offer, hoping to build new lives. But there was a problem nobody had anticipated: emus, approximately 20,000 of them. Every year, emus migrated inland from the coast after their breeding season. And in 1932, they arrived in unprecedented numbers. These birds, standing nearly 2 meters tall and weighing up to 60 kilograms, descended upon the farmland like a feathered plague. They trampled crops, destroyed fences, and created gaps in barriers that allowed rabbits to flood in and cause even more destruction. The farmers were desperate. Their livelihoods were being decimated. So they did what any rational group of people would do when facing an overwhelming force of nature. They asked the military for help, and incredibly, the military said yes. The Australian government approved a military operation against the emus. This was not a metaphor. This was not pest control with a fancy name. This was an actual military deployment, complete with soldiers, machine guns, and official orders. On the 2nd of November, 1932, the war began. Major Gwynedd Purves Winabri Meredith of the Royal Australian Artillery was placed in command. He arrived in the region with 2 soldiers, 2 Lewis's machine guns, and 10,000 rounds of ammunition. The plan was simple: locate the emu flocks, engage them with overwhelming firepower, and eliminate the threat. Military efficiency would surely triumph over a bunch of birds. Except the emus had other plans. Here is where this story takes a turn from unusual to absolutely remarkable. The emus, it turned out, were not easy targets. They did not congregate in large, stationary groups. They split into smaller mobs, each led by what the soldiers described as a tactical leader. When the military approached, these birds scattered in different directions at speeds of up to 50 kilometers per hour, making them nearly impossible to hit with machine gun fire designed for stationary or slow-moving targets. The first engagement was a disaster. The soldiers set up their weapons and opened fire on a group of approximately 50 emus. Most of the birds escaped unharmed. Only a handful were killed. The emus had learned almost immediately to disperse when they heard gunfire. The soldiers tried different tactics. They mounted one of the Lewis guns on a truck to pursue the birds, turning the operation into a high-speed chase across the Australian outback. But the terrain was rough, the truck could not keep up, and the emus continued to evade them. Firing accurately from a moving vehicle proved nearly impossible. Days passed. Ammunition was expended at an alarming rate, but emu casualties remained low. Reports from the field were embarrassing. The soldiers estimated they were using dozens of rounds per bird killed. The emus, meanwhile, seemed almost to be mocking them, regrouping just out of range and continuing their migration patterns as if nothing had happened. After just 6 days, the military operation was called off. Major Meredith withdrew his forces. The emus had won the first round. But the story does not end there. Public pressure from the farmers remained intense. The emu problem had not gone away. The government, reluctant to admit total defeat, authorized a second operation. On the 12th of November, the military returned, determined to redeem themselves. This time, they refined their approach. They set up ambushes near water sources where emus were known to gather. They improved their firing strategies, and for a while, it seemed to work better. Over the course of several days, they managed to kill a significant number of birds, but the emus adapted again. They changed their migration routes, avoided the areas where soldiers were stationed, and continued to break into smaller, more elusive groups. The military was fighting an enemy that could think, adapt, and refuse to engage on human terms. By early December, the second operation was also abandoned. In total, the military had fired approximately 10,000 rounds of ammunition. Estimates of emu casualties ranged from 200 to 500 birds, though the exact number was never confirmed. Given that the original emu population was around 20,000, the impact was minimal. The Great Emu War had ended. Australia had lost. Now, here's the truly fascinating part. This was not just a failure of firepower. It was a demonstration of something profound about nature and evolution. Emus are survivors. They have existed in Australia for millions of years, adapting to droughts, predators, and dramatic climate shifts. They are built for evasion, with powerful legs, keen eyesight, and an instinct to scatter when threatened. What the military encountered was not stupidity or randomness, but millions of years of evolutionary strategy. The soldiers were not incompetent. They were simply outmatched by an opponent perfectly designed for survival in the harsh Australian landscape. The aftermath of the war was both humiliating and enlightening. Newspapers around the world picked up the story, often with amusement. One Australian ornithologist commented that the emus had won every round, and that they deserved a medal. A member of parliament joked that if the military was going to fight emus, the emus should be given machine guns to make it a fair fight. But for the farmers, the situation remained dire. The government eventually abandoned military solutions and instead implemented a bounty system, paying farmers for every emu killed. This proved far more effective, as local knowledge and persistence succeeded where military tactics had failed. The Great Emu War has since become a legend, a cautionary tale about hubris, the unpredictability of nature, and the limits of technology. It reminds us that control over the natural world is often an illusion. No matter how advanced our tools or strategies, nature operates by its own rules. And sometimes, those rules are enforced by a 2-meter-tall bird with no regard for military authority. So what is the lesson here? Perhaps it is that we should respect the resilience of the natural world. Or perhaps it is simply that if you are going to go to war, make sure your enemy cannot run at 50 kilometers per hour. If you found this story as wild as we did, hit that subscribe button and join us as we explore more of history's strangest moments. And drop a comment below. What other bizarre historical events should we cover next? We want to hear from you. Thanks for watching Oddplained. Till next time, stay curious.